Hello everyone, my name is Justin Bellman and today I'm going to talk about the basics of Star Wars, why I personally love it, and why you should too. Let's get started. If you're watching this video, you probably don't know that much or anything at all about Star Wars. Chances are you see a lot of people getting really excited about the new Star Wars film, and you don't get it. Despite what a lot of hardcore Star Wars fans might tell you, that's okay. That's why I'm here. So let's get started with the history. The first film that started it all, Star Wars, was written and directed by George Lucas. There are varying stories on when George Lucas actually came up with the concept for Star Wars, but the important part is that George Lucas was a huge fan of the space adventure series, both serial and comic book, Flash Gordon. George fought long and hard for the rights to the character and ultimately didn't get them. According to renowned director Francis Ford Coppola, George was very depressed because he had just come back and they wouldn't sell him Flash Gordon, and he says, well, I'll just invent my own. And that's exactly what he did. George Lucas came up with the plot for a crazy epic space opera film known as The Star Wars. And obviously because of how much love the film is getting now, the original concept was eaten up just as much by those studio executives that he presented this idea to, right? No. Production company United Artists said no to both The Star Wars and the other film that George Lucas was working on at the time, American Graffiti. Obviously, because I have this poster graphic, you know that American Graffiti ended up getting made. But it was actually not United Artists, but Universal Pictures that agreed to make it, and The Star Wars was put on the back burner. 2 years and one American Graffiti film later, George Lucas turned his attention back to Star Wars. In January of 1973, George Lucas started taking notes and putting all of his heart and soul into a treatment for the Star Wars. After months of getting rejected by United Artists, Universal Pictures, and Walt Disney Productions, which ironically bought Lucasfilm in 2012, George Lucas's little passion project finally found its home at 20th Century Fox in June of 1973. Now, from the beginning of the writing process in January of 1973 all the way to the final draft of the script in March of 1976, the script had undergone countless changes. The first draft of the script had some of the original concepts like the Sith and the Death Star, which we'll talk about, but instead of Luke Skywalker being our protagonist, we had a character that went by the name of Anakin Starkiller. In the next draft, the Force was introduced, and Anakin Starkiller became a general and also Luke Starkiller's father. Luke Starkiller being a young hero on a farm who also has like a lot of brothers. It was different. There were also a bunch of name changes. First, it was The Star Wars. Then it was The Star Wars from the Adventures of Luke Starkiller. Then it was just The Adventures of Luke Starkiller. Then my personal favorite, The Adventures of Luke Starkiller as taken from the Journal of the Whills, Saga 1, The Star Wars. Finally settling on just Star Wars during production. Dodged a bullet. Now, there is a lot to be said about the production of this film, but I'll try and keep it brief because we still have a lot to talk about. First off, George Lucas formed his own visual effects company after learning that 20th Century Fox's effects department had been disbanded. Using methods such as small models and slow camera movements, Industrial Light and Magic's John Dykstra and the rest of his team made some of the most advanced, ahead of their time technical achievements ever. But even though this film was such a technical accomplishment, production was essentially hell. From actors injuring themselves on set to scenes never really going as intended, from cast and crew losing faith in the project, and even George Lucas and producer Gary Kurtz themselves not really trusting that this is gonna do well either. It kind of ended on a "we tried" note. But then it was Wednesday, May 25th, 1977.
What happened?
Star Wars had premiered in 32 theaters on opening night and 8 more over the course of the next 2 days. Nobody who knew about what happened behind the scenes of this production really expected much from this film, but Star Wars immediately broke record after record after record at the box office and became, along with Jaws, one of the first Hollywood blockbusters ever. Fun fact, George Lucas was so stressed out about the production of Star Wars that he went on vacation to Hawaii, where he didn't even know how rich he had just become until he heard Walter Cronkite talking about the huge crowds waiting outside of theaters to see Star Wars on the CBS Evening News. Now, on top of 20th Century Fox giving the film an extended release after its initial success, Star Wars was re-released for years in 1978, 1979, 1981, 1982. After the worldwide success of Star Wars, 2 sequels followed in the years to come. The Empire Strikes Back in 1980 and Return of the Jedi in 1983. And these 3 films to this day are still known as one of the best trilogies in cinematic history, and that's pretty cool. And that about does it for the history of Star Wars.
But Justin, what about the prequels?
Those don't exist, Jason.
The Phantom Menace?
No, they don't. They're not real. They're not. Okay, fine! Talk about the prequels. In 1993, it was announced that there would be a prequel trilogy in order to tell the backstory of some of the more famous Star Wars characters. The protagonist of these films was to be Anakin Skywalker, who was originally going to be the protagonist in the original Star Wars films. Originally titled Star Wars The Beginning, Star Wars Episode 1 The Phantom Menace changed a lot. Not so much story-wise, but it confused a lot of people. The original 1977 film was no longer called just Star Wars. Now it was Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope, while The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi now became 5 and 6, respectively, in order to make room for the new trilogy. The prequel films were highly criticized for being heavily reliant on CGI, incorporating a lot of stories that didn't really need to be told, and unintentionally making a joke out of films that we respected and admired for being arguably the most iconic of all time. Which, ironically enough, is why people are so excited about the new Star Wars films, especially The Force Awakens. We have seen how not to make a Star Wars film. If new director J.J. Abrams and the team behind these new films can correct some of the mistakes that have been made with the prequels, while also getting back to the heart of the original story and the characters we love, maybe Star Wars can become as iconic as we remember it being. Alright, now that we know the history of Star Wars on the most basic of levels, let's get into the content. Now, this is gonna seem a little backwards when I say it, but trust me, it's to prevent confusion. I'm going to start with Episode 4. The original. Cool? Cool. In Star Wars, later retitled A New Hope, our protagonist is young hero Luke Skywalker, who lives on the planet Tatooine with his Uncle Owen and his Aunt Beru. After his Uncle Owen buys 2 droids named C-3PO and R2-D2, Luke learns that R2-D2 is carrying a message. That message comes from Princess Leia, who says, "Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope." So Luke goes and visits former Jedi Knight / current hermit Obi-Wan Kenobi, who also goes by Ben Kenobi. That's a lot, I know. Let's take a step back. What's a Jedi? The Jedi are an ancient race of warriors who harness the light side of the Force. The Force is a sort of spiritual energy that enhances the emotions and the will of the person who can harness it. Don't really get it? Good. No one does. If someone is wholeheartedly good and fights to keep harmony in the galaxy, and they can also harness the light side of the Force, they're known as a Jedi Knight or simply a Jedi. On the other end of the spectrum, if someone harnesses the dark side of the Force, they're known as a Sith Lord or simply a Sith. So Luke meets up with Ben Kenobi and learns that he has a destiny of his own as a Jedi. Just like his father Anakin Skywalker, who fought alongside Obi-Wan in something called the Clone Wars. Obi-Wan gives Luke his father's lightsaber, which is the weapon of both the Jedi and the Sith. And Luke, Obi-Wan, C-3PO, and R2-D2 all go set out to find a ship to help them on their rescue mission to help Princess Leia. And who they find is sketchy as fuck smuggler Han Solo. And Han Solo's lovable but very, very violent counterpart, Chewbacca. After a bit of negotiation, Luke, Obi-Wan, C-3PO, R2-D2, Han Solo, and Chewbacca all board the Millennium Falcon, which Luke affectionately refers to as a piece of junk, to go save Princess Leia. Adventure ensues, people die, relationships are formed, friendships are established, and all in all, it's a real fun time. The original trilogy's main antagonist, or at least the one we hear the most about and see the most, is Darth Vader. All you really need to know about Darth Vader to get the basics out there is that he's a bad dude, he's a real powerful Sith Lord, he has a history with Obi-Wan, and he works for the evil Emperor Palpatine / Darth Sidious, the leader of the Galactic Empire, which is currently at war with the Rebel Alliance, hence the name Star Wars. Yes, it's literally a war in the stars. Star Wars. Ta-da! In an effort to end this war, the Rebel Alliance needs to get the plans to their gigantic, planet-exploding death machine space station, the Death Star. What a goddamn name. So in an effort not to spoil the entire original trilogy for you, I'll leave it there for now. So let's move on to the fourth film in the franchise, Episode 1. I know. Alright, so the entire prequel trilogy is based on a spoiler and one of the biggest twists in film history. So if you're satisfied with not knowing the identity of Darth Vader, and you honestly have not heard one of the most famous lines ever, I would stop watching this video right now and watch the films for yourself. Fair warning. That out of the way, obviously the line I'm talking about is,
I am your father.
no, that's impossible. That's right, Anakin Skywalker, that Jedi father that Luke has, that has a history with Obi-Wan and fought alongside him in the Clone Wars, is actually the main antagonist of the original trilogy, Darth Vader. The prequel trilogy, which consists of Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, Episode 2, Attack of the Clones, and Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, tells the story of how Anakin Skywalker became Darth Vader. Now, a lot of fans don't like these films, not necessarily for their quality, but more just because why? And George Lucas had this to say, and I quote, "Anakin needed to have a mother, Obi-Wan needed a master, Darth Sidious needed an apprentice. Otherwise, the films wouldn't have drama." And to George's liking and many fans' dismay, that's exactly what we got. The Phantom Menace starts with a 9-year-old junkyard slave named Anakin Skywalker, who learns that he has the Force inside him. Anakin Skywalker meets up with a young Obi-Wan Kenobi and Obi-Wan's master at the time, Qui-Gon Jinn. Now there is a lot of spoiler territory when talking about the prequels, and we've covered a lot of ground about these movies already, so I'll just say there are a lot of politics, a lot of new characters, one extraordinarily unnecessary character, and some new takes on classic storylines. And despite what I've said and what you may have heard from die-hard Star Wars fans, not all the changes they made in the prequels were bad. Episode 3, for instance, is one of my favorite films of the franchise because it's the culmination of the old and the new all connecting and making something awesome. But alright, to wrap this up, I will tell you why I personally love Star Wars. It's the timeless tale of good versus evil, an underdog learning that he's destined for greatness. It's got a wonderful cast of characters and an overarching story that just, it's both satisfying and it leaves you wondering what's gonna happen next. I've loved Star Wars since I was 9 years old, and I mean, even now that I'm going on 20, I still love them. The Star Wars films are something everyone can love because it's got something for everyone, regardless of your age or your gender or what have you. The Star Wars films are for everyone, and in my opinion, that's what makes them great. And hey, if I can't convince you, maybe George Lucas can. Here's his opinion on what makes Star Wars fantastic. It's the flotsam and jetsam from the period when I was 12 years old. All the books and films and comics that I liked when I was a child. The plot is simple, good against evil, and the film is designed to be all the fun things and fantasy things I remember. The word for this movie is fun. So please, do yourself a favor and take the time to watch these movies, and also check out the future installments as they come out in theaters. It'll be worth it. I promise. What do you think? Did this video make you want to check out Star Wars? Make sure to let me know in the comment section down below. And don't forget, if you do like Star Wars already and you were just checking out this video for the hell of it, make sure to share it with anyone that you want to share your love of Star Wars with. Maybe we can get them on board as well. And even if this video didn't make you want to see Star Wars, you probably like something, so tell me what you want me to talk about in the next beginner's guide. Alright, like this video if you liked it, subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you guys next time. Goodbye.